Ask any questions that you want. I do want to say that we really do appreciate the Cornerstone Church for making their space available. It turns out that we do have more participants this morning than would have fit in the original room that we had arranged for at the Hutton Hotel, and that things have gone extremely well. We have speakers here from the UK, from Australia, from all over the United States, and I don't think that anybody could say that anyone has heard anything here this morning that could be and remotely claimed to be inciting violence, which is what the hotel claimed in saying that they weren't going to honor their contract and that had removed that. With that, I am emceeing this morning. I'll be more available later, but if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, and then we have several of our speakers available here.
Mr. Mayor, do you think that there was some type of Sharia or Muslim Brotherhood influence in the effort to keep this conference away from certain hotels, or to at least cancel it at some point?
There was an organized effort constantly at hotels. This was not some stranger that heard there's going to be a conference and called the Hutton Hotel. I'm sorry, I don't believe that. It was the same group of individuals and whoever was backing them, whether it was Muslim Brotherhood, which is in fact CARE, or not. You know, there was an organized effort in order to accomplish this. I would like to also point out that the Hutton Hotel parent corporation, Miramar, owns their most expensive hotel, the one that is their most prestigious hotel, the one that they have the most money sunk into is in the UK. It's in London, and that hotel is a five-star hotel. It is a favorite of individuals from the Middle East who are very wealthy. They have had Sharia-compliant insurance programs and other things going on at that hotel, and I'm sure that there is quite possibly a threat we're going to pull our business out of your UK property if you allow that. Now, that is supposition on my part. However, I think that considering that this is Nashville, Tennessee, that would be the most likely.
Thank you.
Is the difficulty in finding venues for anti-Sharia events, both here in Nashville, but also recently in Texas, is it indicative of any sort of shift in public thinking about your movement or the message you're trying to convey?
It's indicative of fear. That's what it is. The Hutton Hotel made it clear. They canceled it because of fear. That was their statement. When I talked to their vice president, he made it clear that they were afraid for their staff and their guests. The hotel in Sugar Land, Texas, said they were afraid. The United States of America, we cannot conduct our everyday business based on what one group of people threaten to do or not do. Does somebody cancel any conferences by Jews because they're afraid, that they're afraid of violence, or Christians? No, it is intolerable that we as a nation, we have people in hiding. We have cartoonists that have changed their names. We have taken a novel by Tom Clancy where the terrorists were Muslims and changed them to Germans to make a movie out of it because of fear. The fear has to end. We cannot run this country based on fear of Islamic violence. We can't do it. And when hotels and others kick groups like ours out, they are basically saying, we fear Islamic violence. Well, if Islamic violence is that much of a danger, then perhaps something needs to be done at that level. Not to censor free speech, but to censor those that threaten violence. With that, there are other speakers. Could the speakers join me, please, and I'll introduce them. Of course, this is Bishop E.W. Jackson, who was earlier. Don Fetter, the right Reverend or very Reverend?
Reverend, just the Reverend.
The Reverend Dr. Mark Drury, J. Thomas Smith, and if you have any questions, Lou Ann Zelnick, who will be speaking later, our good friend, who, of course, Pastor Maurer Davis, who will be speaking this evening as well as with us. So if you have any questions, please.
Can I add one thing to
Oh,
what you
yes,
said
sure,
there?
sure.
If
Islam is such a peaceful religion, we're told this all the time, Islam is peaceful, Islam is peaceful, then why is there such fear of a conference that simply seeks to have a rational, peaceful discussion about the impact of Islam on our culture, particularly Sharia law? It tells me that without having to admit it, people are saying that they consider Islam to be a much greater threat than anybody is willing to own up to. So, I would just say I'm glad that Pastor Davis had the courage to have this conference. We don't hate anybody. We love our country, and we're simply here to discuss issues that we think are vital to our national security interests and to our culture.
May I ask a question to anyone who'd like to answer it? Herman Cain, huge in the news the last month, he took a very strident stance earlier this year saying no Muslims in his cabinet. He was reluctant to put any Muslims in his administration. He said he supports the right of local American communities to block Muslim mega mosques or mosques, that sort of thing. Months later into the campaign, he reversed himself, he apologized for those comments, and walked them all back. Why is that? Can anyone explain that phenomenon?
Sure, it's because the media told him it was bigoted. And he caved under pressure. By the way, I don't think Herman Cain really understood the issue. I think he spoke not on the basis of knowledge, but emotionally. But people in the media basically said to him, look, if you say these things, you won't be taken seriously. You'll be viewed as a bigot, a hate monger. And just as he made the statements emotionally, he reversed his position emotionally. At this conference, we're trying to discuss these issues. We are discussing these issues, I believe, rationally, not based on emotion, but objectively. And it's interesting, the other side, the people who keep shouting Islamophobia, tell us that our views are based on fear, they're irrational, they're paranoid. If that's the case, why are they so afraid of our views being heard?
Was it just the media? Was there also a Muslim influence?
Let me add this. I'm a candidate for U.S. Senate in Virginia, so this is an issue that's very important to me. We don't have religious tests in our country, okay? So then no one should have to undergo a religious test to determine whether they hold public office. I think what Herman Cain was trying to say is, in an artful way, we have a national security issue here. And we really got to watch ourselves because we've seen people come in, matriculate in, become citizens, and then become terrorists. Now, those may be anecdotal, but they're enough to give us pause and to suggest that it's something that we just simply need to be looking at. And I don't think you need to be bigoted against, and I don't think Herman Cain was. I think you need to be, it needs to be suggested that you're bigoted against Muslims because you raise those kinds of questions.
This is a part of the conflict we had on our legal panel. I mean, you do have a First Amendment right of Muslims to practice their religion. That's basically what Herman said when he backtracked a little bit. He said, wait a minute, their religious rights are protected, but we do have, as has been said here, this terrorist risk that seems to come out of mosques and imams. We know that. So this is the dilemma the culture has. We have to, in one fell swoop, protect the religious rights of the Muslims, recognize that most are peaceful and most aren't involved in this, but at the same time identify those that are lethal and killing people. And if you squelch a conference like that, you frustrate that process. There's not anybody here that doesn't support the religious rights of Muslims to worship as they please, to have a mosque, and I think that's what Herman is trying to strike that balance and describe his position in that conference.